You wake up when the alarm goes off. You go to your job. Sorry.
Kenshi has been described by many as one of the most powerful, immersive, and breathtaking role-playing games ever created by a single person, reaching over 2 million downloads, overwhelmingly positive reviews, and even a 10 out of 10 score on Steam. However, I don't really care that much about that. Now show me a game with faction-based warfare, adaptive AI and ecosystems, war crimes, racism, and giant bugs, and I might make a video on it.
Let's go!
Now I should probably explain a little bit how Kenshi works before we begin. Kenshi has no objectives, no missions, and no questline. Therefore, the entire gameplay experience from the start is whatever the person playing makes of it. Want to make an army of Bonedogs and destroy every kingdom in the world? You can do that. Want to AFK farm inside the Holy Nation's mines for the rest of eternity because they're racist towards the Hiver Master Race? You can do that too. It is an entirely simulated ecosystem that will change based on both what the player chooses to do and the world itself. Remember how you destroyed that small village? Well, now their faction is at a disadvantage and it led to the death of their whole kingdom by another faction. Or what if you were several months in your playthrough as a human and wanted to move to the Holy Nation for the first time? No can do, some guy managed to smuggle in over 200 hivers into the city and killed everyone inside, including himself afterwards. Nevertheless, Kenshi has several different ways to start out, including very preferential starts like having 5 characters to start out with, to being a slave in the aforementioned Holy Nation mines. I personally decided to choose the most preferential start of all, being only minutes away from being torn to pieces and eaten by cannibals.
Quit having fun!
I was allowed 2 characters to start out. Being an insect arthropodal supremacist, I immediately chose a hiver prince, who I promptly named Bugsworth, a diplomatic and business-oriented everyman, and his trusty companion, Beef Stew. Almost immediately, Bugsworth and Beef Stew were faced with an entire horde of carnivorous ketchup and mustard bottles, and with both their stats being level 1 and almost everything, our odds were looking pretty good. However, we decided to tactically retreat anyways, just in case. Unfortunately for the duo, there were cannibals who were faster and they were able to cut them off and occasionally score a hit on them. And in Kenshi, if your limb gets hit enough times, it stops working. In a stroke of bravery, Beef Stew attempted to distract the greater horde of cannibals so Bugsworth could return with help. Sadly though, this tactic was about as useful as Austrians in World War I, as the cannibals had split their forces into 2 groups to take both of them, and within only a few minutes, Beef Stew was being dragged back into the food cages. Bugsworth, however, refused to give up, quickly learning that he could exploit the game's attack system and avoid getting hit by switching direction every time a cannibal was about to attack him. It took skill, time, and most importantly blood that Bugsworth was rapidly losing, due to already having been beaten numerous times before learning this, but Bugsworth eventually had a moment to catch his breath. Consulting the map, Bugsworth surmised that his best chance would be the nearby village, only to arrive there and realize that it was another cannibal village. And almost as if on command, another cannibal spotted Bugsworth. Realizing this might be his only chance, decided to fight back, and it wasn't even close. Ironically, it took Bugsworth to the village he was just at, so Bugsworth just broke out and immediately left again, and he was back to Matrix-level dodging the cannibals' attacks. Finally getting a chance to heal himself, I decided to check up on Beef Stew to see if he was faring any better, and he was bleeding and unconscious in a cage, so we'll just check on him again later. Bugsworth, finally free to actually explore before he himself starves to death, finds an abandoned building to loot so he has money when he finds a village that isn't Jeffrey Dahmer's wet dream. Inside he found plenty of stuff to sell, but upstairs you'll never guess what he found. Yeah, that's right, he found more cannibals.
There's probably something really good inside.
Bugsworth, being the reasonable diplomat he is, just robbed the place and left. And after only 25 more years of walking, he came across a village who weren't cannibals. The flotsam ninjas, although not particular towards hivers, are fortunately racist towards the cannibals, and yes, in Kenshi, cannibals count as their own race. The flotsam ninjas also have their own dumpling restaurant, and Bugsworth sold his stolen cannibal items to get some snacks for his remaining journey. Bugsworth having plans to amass some gear and mercenary help in order to mount a revenge attack against the cannibal village that nearly ate him, and fairly certain they killed his friend Beef Stew. Speaking of Beef Stew, despite having one of his legs ripped off and eaten, managed to pick the lock to his cage and it was now steadily escaping the cannibal's embrace, inching along like a worm or snake. Bugsworth first stopped at a Holy Nation outpost for directions, but quickly forgot that it was White Boy Summer and started running after they tried to send him to the estrogen mines. After trying to rob the Holy Nation in defiance, he finally made it to the hub, a destroyed town which is known for being destroyed in a town. He spoke to a mercenary there to see how many mercs he could put together, and looking at the $2,000 a day prices, It wasn't looking good. And since the only other faction in town, the Shinobi, charged $20,000 to even join them like some sort of modern-day financial guru,
You're broke! You're fucking poor!
Bugsworth realized that there were far better ways to spend his money than to join the Shinobi's Discord server. If he was going to drop that much money, he might as well spend $50,000 on an animation or something. Either way, he needed money, and his only other option was trade skill employment. Thus, he got straight to work, mining copper to make some money. Meanwhile, Beef Stew was still just worming away. Wait, no, never mind, he just got killed by a bunch of carnivorous giraffes. Bugsworth, being no stranger to labor, returned to the bar, and after tricking a dog into going into the bar, he quickly amassed enough money to buy a destroyed house in the hub, and after he repaired it, it would serve as his base of operations in the sector. And while rebuilding, he came across a nomad trader in the area, and decided that both a Bonedog named Wobby and a goat named Gerald would both be worthwhile purchases. They mostly just sat around and watched him work, but Gerald must have put in a good word with the other goats, because the next time a group of bandits came to attack Bugsworth, a random horde of goats actually intercepted them and proceeded to tear them to pieces.
7, would you not eat my pants? Ah!
It was all just another paycheck to Bugsworth, and since the hungry bandits only care about one thing, they also make good training practice. And that's how Bugsworth's life went for the next several days, getting into fights with the local homeless population and stockpiling money from copper deposits. Occasionally, actually competent dust bandits would come, but I would just lure them into the nearest bar and fight them there. Also, when I got back to the hub, the whole town was littered with dead bodies, so I'm pretty sure the dust bandits took over. Eventually, I decided I had made enough money and made my way further south to find Squin and hopefully some decent soldiers. And I was right. Making his way inside Squin, Bugsworth learned of the Shek people, powerful thorny abhumans who were adept fighters, costing only 1,000 more than a mercenary, but in turn lasting forever. I bought several of these Shek creatures, mutilating their bodies in the process for my own amusement. The most expensive of which being Kang, who not only charged me 6,000, but threatened and racially profiled me during the negotiations. I also bought a big backpack so I could carry more copper during work hours. Since we had an actual group now, we were also winning the fights against the homeless bandits.
Why do I enjoy punching homeless people? It's not for the reason you'd expect.
And it was right back to grinding, mining more copper, power walking back to town, quickly making up more money as I was planning on buying better gear for my soldiers before we attacked the cannibals again. The hungry bandit raids were getting large though, and it started being more than I could take. Fortunately though, Kang was easily our most competent fighter, being the last man standing on our side for several fights, often killing 5 or 6 remaining bandits after everyone else went down and keeping us from getting our snacks stolen. I guess it was worth the extra cost after all. It was a good thing that we were getting beaten up too, as it was raising our toughness stat, which would allow us to take more damage during fights, becoming even more of a fighting force against our cannibal adversaries. Speaking of which, this Shek warrior started flirting with Bugsworth, and even more so, Shek flirt by trying to beat up their opponent. Bugsworth promptly lost the mating ritual, only to find another Shek willing to come with us, this time for free because she lost her horns and she needs to get horny again or something, and I finally got some armor for the group. I didn't really know what to get though, so I kinda just picked at random and split them among us.
Among Us!
We had everything we needed now. Fighting experience, capable warriors, armor, a pet goat, and a pocket full of lukewarm food. Thus, Bugsworth and co. began the arduous journey to the cannibal village where his journey began. Of course, hungry bandits attacked us all along the way, but they just served as further skill increases to my formidable force of Shek warriors. We took a wrong turn because we ended up at a place called Rebirth, however we just detoured around it and shortly after made our way to the hidden forest. There we were attacked by the cannibals again, though this time we were ready for them. With our armor and weapons, we were able to systematically hack most of them to pieces, Wobby being especially useful in the fight, ripping cannibals' limbs off and then running away to eat it, meaning I didn't really have to feed him anymore. A couple of our characters got kidnapped in the fighting, but since cannibals have a tendency to deposit whoever they find at the nearest camp, we were able to get them out pretty easily. We also ran out of food for the journey to the forest, but at this point Bugsworth is used to the process. Mine the ore, get attacked by cannibals, power walk to the dumpling restaurant, and do that a few times until your backpack is full of snacks. Fortunately, some goats killed some bone dogs in a turf war, so we just took their meat and cooked it, and we weren't there long. Making it through the final leg of the journey, we saw the objective of our revenge, the cannibal village. We considered going in the stealthy way, but ultimately realized we didn't need to, as the cannibals had been weakened due to the fact that they apparently eat each other as much as they eat everyone else. And thus we moved into the village slowly, stopping along the way to fight any cannibals we saw. This time around, the cannibals weren't able to attack us with overwhelming numbers, so we were the ones beating them down with ease. See, not only were we on par with their fighting skill, but we now had both numbers and gear on our side. and after moving all the way to the center of the village and even coming across some other people who apparently had a bone to pick with the cannibals, we called it a success as the last of them had died. Those that weren't dead were still on the floor of the village, either in critical condition or bleeding to death because Wabi ripped one of their limbs off. Looking around, Bugsworth felt content with his revenge. He had avenged not only his capture, but his friend's murder. However, there was a feeling in his gut, a small feeling, like he had taken revenge on the wrong people. And almost as if on cue, a heavy squadron of the same carnivorous giraffes that had killed Beef Stew were now converging on the cannibal village. It was actually pretty terrifying how quickly they killed Bugsworth's friends. And then shortly after, his pets, his Shek warriors, and then Bugsworth himself. Even with all their training and weapons, they were no match for the giraffes' attacks, and couldn't even bring down a single one of them. This brought the Righteous Insects storyline to a quick and tragic end. Thus, this world truly does not care about the player and will continue with or without them no matter what. Nevertheless, this was a fun first-time full playthrough of Kenshi, the term full playthrough being a bit subjective though. I already have an idea for a challenge next time I play Kenshi and look forward to making it the next time I play. If you want to see more Kenshi from me, make sure to let me know in the comments below, as well as vote for it the next time I make a poll in my community tabs. Lastly, if you aren't subscribed and you enjoy my content, please do, as we are so close to 100,000 subscribers. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you all next time.